How's it going, guys? Welcome back to CloneorDie. This is Clay, and today we'll be talking about the XM177E1 from the Vietnam War. So in the mid-1960s, the United States Army put out a request for a shortened submachine gun version of their M16A1 rifles. And if you look, this thing, with its stock fully collapsed, is tiny. This is the first generation of those weapons. This is the E1 model of the XM177 series. Later on, you'd see the E2. The E2 had an 11.5 barrel. This has a straight 10-inch. Now, in Vietnam, these weapons are typically carried by special forces, radio operators, platoon commanders, crewmen, helicopter pilots, stuff like that. But the special forces guys really used these the most. You see a lot of photos of the long-range recon patrols going out into the jungle with a couple of these bad boys, and as far as they were concerned, they're pretty awesome. I mean, you have a short, handy, compact package with a moderator here designed to change the muzzle sound and the report of the rifle, make it less like an M16. Now, the original versions of these guns, the E1s, they didn't have chrome lined chambers, so they had some reliability issues in the field. The E2 models with the 11.5 barrel fixed a lot of those problems. Also with the 10-inch barrel, you're kind of at the wit's end of the direct impingement gas system, so you have a lot of reliability problems just from that alone.
Goddamn Mattel malfunction on my ass. Shit!
In my own personal case, it took a lot of experimenting to get this thing running, but now it does, and it's pretty fun. But historically speaking, this was like the average Joe Special Forces, not MACV SOG, but like 82nd Airborne and etc. This was their rifle. This was their commando gun, and it's a pretty wicked blaster. If you're really interested in the history of these and kind of like more in-depth detail of their service life, I recommend you check out the Forgotten Weapons video on the XM177E2, hold on one minute, the Pourin Diesel video, and the Bruce at CampArmament video. I'll link those in the description below. Highly recommend watching those YouTubes. Bruce especially, he runs with Brent0331 a lot, do a lot of really good content. Those guys are kind of like the OGs of the clone kit and clone weapon kind of YouTube community. Highly recommend you look at their stuff, but they have a lot more in-depth history details. So now I'm gonna go over my bootleg XM177 build, all the parts. So this started as most builds start. You see a spare part and you're like, time to build a new rifle. Well, I picked up a parts kit from the Philippines, an M16A1 parts kit, in the middle of the carry handle craze when you couldn't really find stuff. I wanted to build an A1 out of it, and Brownells at the time was making a lot of the parts that I needed to complete that, so I was going to go that route until I found a complete A1 upper at a gun show that was a Border Patrol surplus. Picked it up for like 700 bucks, bolt carrier, totally complete, and that knocked a few of the parts that I had into kind of the parts bin. Looking at that parts bin, I found this A1 upper and thought, what do I want to build out of it? Why not an E1? So I'm going to go over all the parts I used. I'm going to consult my list here. So first, the upper receiver here is an original A1 upper receiver from that Filipino parts kit. The dust cover here is the original dust cover. It was like covered in rust and pretty decrepit, pitted, all that stuff. But I kind of thought that was charming. It looked like it was used and abused and, you know, like spent time in the jungle, so I kept that. But the only parts I really used from that original A1 kit were the upper receiver, the front sight post, the pistol grip, and the carry handle, or the charging handle. So besides that, that kit itself cost me about $700 at the time. I used all the other parts on my other A1 build. So to the lower receiver, I picked up 2 Brownells BRN 16A1s. The first one I used on the A1 build. The second one I used here. Great receivers. They're about $160 right now. I think that's what I paid at the time. So upper receiver, original Philippines A1. Lower receiver, Brownells 16A1, made by Nodax Bud. Great receivers. That knocks out that. Next, my barrel. And this is where the clone correctness, if you're super Autismo, Colt, AR-15 nerd, this is the thing that'll pop out to you immediately. It is a government profile barrel, so it's not the correct pencil profile, but I bought that from Diamondback Arms. I went with them because at the time, looking for 10-inch barrels, there was nobody making a 10-inch pencil. The only way I could get that is if I bought a Brownells barrel and chopped it, but I'm lazy. Didn't want to do that. I found this and said, screw it. It's a 10-inch AR anyways. I'm not expecting like Gold Cup accuracy out of it. As far as the accuracy, it's probably a 2.5 MOA barrel. It works. It's a barrel, but it's not going to win you any competitions, but it's on a fun gun.
Tao sẽ giết mày. Tao sẽ giết tất cả chúng mày.
So I picked that up for about $80, which to me, I mean, that's a win-win. It's cheap, and if it sucks, then I only spent $80 on it. Next was the front sight post gas block. Basically, this was an H-bar, Colt H-bar, ban era front sight post gas block. Picked that up at a gun show from some guy's partsman for like $5. To me, that was a win-win because I had a government profile barrel and it didn't have the bayonet lug. All XM series guns didn't have the bayonet lug. I didn't want to buy a pencil barrel, cut it, and I didn't want to buy a pencil barrel profile gas block and shave the bayonet lug. I took the lazy way out. That is probably the only thing on this gun that if you're really, really, really tistic about this stuff, you'll notice immediately, but from 10 feet away, it works. And for me, it's a fun gun, not super serious. I don't really care. The next thing is the moderator. This is the Griffin Armament linear compensator moderator. It's probably the best out of the 3 that I owned. I owned the Griffin Armament, the Brownells, and the Retro Rifles, like real weight XM177 moderator. In my opinion, the Griffin's the best. It gives you some recoil compensation. Second best would be the Brownells. And the third best, the one I liked the least, was the Retro Rifles one. In my opinion, it was too shiny, like it just didn't look correct. And it was kind of heavy. So I got rid of that one. But if you're looking at any of those, the Brownells is about $55. That's the one I recommend the most if you want to kind of skirt the cost. It looks the part, it's nice and light. It's totally serviceable, totally fine. The Retro Rifles one cost me about $85. I didn't really like that one, wouldn't recommend that one. But the one I recommend the most is the Griffin Armament. It's going to be about $120. I got lucky. I got this for free from a really, really cool boomer who had just bought a real XM177 moderator and paid the tax stamp and all 9. And when I was telling him I was building this thing, he gave it to me for free. So shout out to that guy. Super awesome. But I recommend the Griffin out of all of them. It's the best of all the worlds. It looks correct. It gives you some recoil compensation, and it's awesome. This thing is a fire-breathing dragon. You get massive fireballs out of it. It's a lot of fun. Super cool gun. Next, I bought the TNTE XM177 reproduction stock. It's got the correct original castle nut, which really isn't a castle nut, but if you notice, the profile is completely different from what we expect on ARs today. We'll have a close-up shot of that. And it has a aluminum stock with the correct, or at least a copy of the correct kind of coating where it's like super, super shiny. All in all, looks great. Picked that up at a gun show. It was one of their blems, so I think I paid around like $150, $140 for it, but they sell new for about $160. Probably the best stock you can buy for that on the market right now if you're gonna build this yourself. Another thing that came off the Filipino parts kit was the A1 grip. Original, not much to say there. The slip ring right here, the Delta ring, is the correct M16 profile. The early XM E1s had this. The E2s had the later Delta ring that we kind of know and associate today with M4s. But this is like a flat, round. That's the one you need. Pick that up in a parts bin at a gun show for like 10 bucks. The most expensive piece of plastic I paid for on this gun was the original Colt handguards. I picked this up from a guy on Reddit in the Retro Rifles subreddit. Super cool, paid about 100 bucks for it. It's the correct Colt 6-hole sheen. I don't know if it's Bakelite or plastic or whatever, but it looks the part and it matches the stock and the pistol grip. Another thing I went with here is for my lower parts kit, I consulted my parts bin once again and picked up basically what was left of a CMMG lower parts kit and threw that in here. Besides the barrel and the front sight block, the most clone incorrect aspects of this gun are the cross pins that you use for the lower. They have a divot in them from the CMMG parts kit. That's not clone correct, but you really won't notice that until you step like close and you look at this thing. To me, it didn't really matter. That's a non-issue to me, but it is not clone correct. Another aspect of the CMMG parts kit that is not clone correct is on this side, there is a like little mark, like a dash line for when you take it off safe. You can see if you're on safe for fire. That's not clone correct to the originals, but again, such a minor detail. Pulled it out of my parts bin, didn't matter to me. A CMMG parts kit, lower parts kit, costs you about like 60 bucks or below, depending on where you get it. Super simple. As far as the internal guts of the gun, I have an AR-15 profile bolt carrier with, it's not a full 16 profile, but for some reason this gun, whether it be the dwell time or the mass of the bolt or whatever was going on, I couldn't get my original Colt bolt carrier to run really reliably in this thing. But for some reason the combination that I found that worked best was a AR-15 scalloped bolt carrier and a H1 buffer with a carbine spring. H1 buffer is going to cost you like 24 bucks, something like that. You can go up to H3 or on any of the other buffers. You're going to be in the $40, $50 range at max. But that's what I found runs the best. And to me, that's what mattered, was getting this thing to run. I might tweak with it later to run an M16 profile bolt carrier, but right now it slings lead and it ejects reliably. So that's all that matters to me. This is a fun gun. I'm not here like seriously considering, you know, turning this thing to 100% clone correct, even down to the bolt. Doesn't really matter to me. The original early XM177E1s had reliability problems. The chamber was not chrome lined, so you will see a lot of Special Forces guys actually duct taping cleaning rods on the side of their gun for when inevitably that gun had a stuck case, they could eject it and clear that malfunction. They use a green tape as far as like cloning goes. It's this alpine green like tape like that, like duct tape, 100-mile-an-hour tape. I found this on eBay. This is the correct color tone for the 60s. You do see the later OD kind of more of a drab green being used, but on a much smaller account. Besides that, super fun gun. Like I said, it just spits fireballs. This thing is a fire-breathing dragon. It's a bummer I don't have an original moderator, but to me, that doesn't matter. It doesn't do anything besides, you know, change the sound profile a little bit, and the $200 tax stamp for that seems ridiculous. But if you want to build one of these, now's the time. I built this mid carry handle craze, and finding parts is kind of a pain in the butt, but now with H&R kind of stepping up to the plate, you can buy a complete upper, complete lower, totally correct, and you have the cool H&R stamps, and on top of that, you have a lifelong warranty. So, you know, this is like a rat build, bootleg build that I put together that if I ever have a problem with it, I'm kind of screwed, you know, because I got to build it myself or fix it myself, whereas if you bought the H&R, you might be able to just send it back. it's all in all just a fun gun, and it's kind of an example of how cloning doesn't really have to be an arm and a leg expensive. There's a lot of like serious different levels to cloning. Some people will go all Colt, everything, all original. That's super awesome, but that's also expensive. I respect those guys, but this is kind of a fun gun. This isn't anything like super serious to me. So going full Colt tism on this thing, why? You know, why? Why?
Dwight.
Seems like you already know.
Why? All right, guys, so that's pretty much the quick and dirty on my bootleg XM177. It's one of my favorite kind of retro ARs that I've put together. A lot of the fun from this was basically just sifting through gun show tables and finding bits and pieces here. Met a lot of really cool older guys that either built these clones or built something like it in the 80s or the late 90s, and they helped me along the way. Super fun gun. It's pretty much my favorite carbine-esque AR. These guns are the epitome of old school cool, whether it be with the Colt 20 rounders or with the 30 rounders. They just look awesome. You see a lot of reference photos of guys, you know, who ordered these from back home, the 30 rounders slapped in these guns. You see a lot of guys with the 20 rounders. You even see a lot of dudes with the jungle taped mags, you know, two 20 rounders slapped together. If you ever have the chance to shoot one, especially a real one, go for it. They are awesome. So thanks for coming to the channel. I hope you guys enjoyed my bootleg build. Whether you plan to build one in the future or you just like to watch, thanks for coming. We'll have more content coming out in the future. We've taken a quick hiatus, you know, for a few months, but hopefully we get back to kind of normal filming schedule. We've got a bunch of stuff that we've got sitting in our gun safes that we'd love to share with you, let alone gear in our closets. So if you enjoyed this video, go ahead, like and subscribe. We'll have more stuff like it. And check out the YouTube channels I have linked in the description if you want any more in-depth detail on these guns and their histories. So thanks for coming by, and I'll see you in the next one. Well, I'm out.